Quitting the grind of a 9 to 5, the mentality that we seem to have in the Western world, whereby we go to school, we go to university, we may even get a master's degree. Am I using any of that education that I had and did and all of that toil that I put myself through? No, because I quit that grind. I quit that grind for silver. I didn't know it at the time. It was daunting as hell, but it was the best decision that I ever made. And now, 10 years in, I have a business that has turned over £1 million. I have a business that has grown a brand to nearly 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's changed my life, not just from a financial perspective, but from an emotional perspective, from a mental health perspective. I am far better off than I ever was when I was part of that herd mentality. Can you do it? Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to another Precious Metal Ramble, where we have down-to-earth discussions about all things precious and shiny. A little over 10 years ago now, I quit the world of work. Well, working for other people at least. I'd got fed up of the 9 to 5 grind, of the herd mentality of modern society, it seems, whereby we get our education degree. I even did a master's degree, and then we get a job. And then we kind of just stick in that job, 9 to 5 every day, the same old. And it got to me. So a little over 10 years ago, I quit working for other people and decided to work for myself. I didn't know it at the time that it would be the best thing that would ever happen to me from an emotional perspective, from a mental perspective, and from a financial perspective as well, because I found silver, I found gold, I found YouTube, I found being able to work for myself, to run a business, to start a business, to grow a brand, and to change the direction of my career and my life for good and for the good. So I thought I'd share some of my thoughts, insights, and experiences with the idea, hopefully, that we might be able to inspire, even if just one of you out there starts a side hustle that maybe one day turns into a full-blown business. That would be mission accomplished for me, because it's the best thing that anyone can ever do, in my opinion. It's a scary thing, don't get me wrong. And me quitting my job out the blue was out of fortuitous circumstances, because I had a very supporting wife, and we had also a lot of important financial plans in place before I'd done that. But it's something that I'm very firmly in favor of if you have the means to try and be your own boss. Something I'm very keen on. So we'll go into all of that. Before I do, just a quick reminder, 100,000 subs round the corner. If you want a chance to win this 1 kilo silver cube that I made, which I would never have made if I'd never quit my job 10 years ago, then subscribe to the channel and help me get to 100,000 subs. So I quit 10 plus years ago, and I was just doing a bit of a reflection on that as I was thinking about what to film today, because we just had back from the assay office another little batch of our 10-year anniversary bars that will be out later in the year. And I really do look back on these last 10 years in a large degree of fondness that I didn't know it at the time, but it was the best decision I ever made. I guess the core argument here, and I'll talk a little bit more about how and the mentality that you need and the metrics and the business plans and the things that I did in the second part of this video. But the first part is more of a kind of a reflection on that mentality that we are all in at the moment, that it seems people just kind of go along with the grind. And that's one thing that silver has helped me learn more about over this last 10 years, that we can be the masters of our own fate, of our own finances. And silver and gold have most assuredly helped me learn that. And that's priceless. The old adage that if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, he eats for the rest of his life, cannot be more true than with silver. It's that almost matrix moment where you do disconnect from that grind and you finally work out that actually what is important is transcending that 9 to 5 grind, that job, working for bosses that you don't like and people that you just don't really want to socialize with, but you have to talk with at the water cooler. Those kind of things just really kept on getting to me over and over again. And to be able to quit and do what you want to do in life is so, so important. I can't stress that enough. Like that made me such a better person from a mental health perspective, from an emotional perspective. I didn't like the person I was becoming when I was working for other people. So after a quick word from our sponsor, I will talk about the practicalities of this and how I managed to set up a business which now, after 10 years, has turned over more than £1 million, and we have nearly 100,000 subscribers and so much more going for me in life. With gold, copper and silver trading at near all-time highs, here's why I think you should take a look at today's sponsor, US Gold Mining Incorporated, trading on the Nasdaq with the symbol USGO. They own the Whistler project, located just 100 miles from Anchorage in south-central Alaska, and containing all three of these metals in their mineral resources. US Gold Mining has recently announced the results of their preliminary economic assessment for the 100% owned Whistler Gold Copper project. The report supports that the Whistler project is a robust gold copper mine development asset in a top-tier jurisdiction in the US. The PEA models the Whistler project to produce over 2.6 million ounces of gold and almost 600 million pounds of copper, plus nearly 6.6 million ounces of silver. To understand the true potential leverage of this asset at today's spot prices, Whistler's after-tax net present value jumps to almost $4.9 billion, with an attractive expected annualized return of investment in the project, or an internal rate of return, exceeding 60%. Alaska is clearly important for Trump's administration. Trump issued an executive order on day one of his presidency called Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential. In addition to federal support, state-level policies are also strong. Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy is a strong proponent of economic growth and the infrastructure to support mining in his state, and he has personally visited the Whistler project himself. The state of Alaska, under Governor Dunleavy's leadership, is moving forward with a planned road system, the West Sustina Access Project, that will connect the Whistler project with Anchorage. The Whistler mineral resource has never been mined before, and in addition to the gold component of this resource estimate, the deposit also contains estimated copper and silver resources, which were both recently added to the list of critical minerals and are being prioritized for exploration and development by the Trump administration. Do your own extensive research on US Gold Mining. The symbol is USGO and traded on the Nasdaq. Make sure you review US Gold Mining's annual report and other filings with the SEC when you research this opportunity. A big thank you to them for sponsoring today's video, and back on we go with today's precious metal ramble. The practicalities of quitting your job to be self-employed, that's not easy. And I was very fortunate that I had support and the financial planning, by which I mean that we'd been saving for a very long time. We were, we're not in this, we were in the grind of the 9-to-5s, but at the same time, we were also understanding that we didn't want to work for the whole entire lifespan of our adult lives. We wanted to be able to retire early. So we were already saving. So I had this ability to just stop working for a little bit and take that time. And it was the best thing I ever did. But suddenly having a blank slate and working for yourself is pretty hard. It's a pretty hard concept to get around. And I remember the very first day that I officially started my new job of working for myself. I'm not going to go into exact details of what I used to do, but I used to work within business management and various different businesses, large and small. And I remember that first day, it's like, I don't have a paycheck coming in. I need to find out some way of getting that. And so you need to work out just the simple things. How are you going to find your customers? Where are you going to find your customers? What approach are you going to have to get them? How are you going to convince them that you are the right person to work with or for? There's a whole host of different things. Now, the original plan for me was to continue consulting in the sphere of influence that I had been in, so being an independent contractor within that sphere of influence. And it sort of worked for a few months, and I was getting a small, steady clientele of people to work with, but I wasn't filling my time at all. And I still felt, whilst I was enjoying that grind of, cold calling and going through all of that different, hoops and bounds to try and find new customers, networking events, all of this, it just didn't feel quite right. When I found silver and gold, by a happenstance, just casually having more time on my hands, found a hobby. And that hobby then suddenly turned into me pouring silver and making videos. I was inspired by other people, and that's why I want to do this video here as well, to inspire other people to think about what might be best for them in this world. And so I did. And then came this moment we were about 9 months into the Backyard Bullion journey. I started it in July 2016. And it was early January. Well, in fact, it was New Year's Eve in 2017. My lovely wife decided to ask me whether or not I was ever going to do more of my consultancy work, or was I going to focus more on silver and YouTube? And I said, I really want to focus on silver and YouTube. It feels right. So she made me do a business plan. And therein comes part of the biggest and most important thing for any person trying to set up their own business. If you've got an idea, if you've got a passion, that's the thing that makes the difference. You can write as many business plans as you want. You can do as much economic forecasting, financial forecasting, budgeting as you like. But if you don't have the passion for it, if you don't have the drive, if you don't have the get up and go mentality, if you don't have something behind you that is really fueling that fire, it's not going to work. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was doing okay for my consultancy stuff, but I wasn't filling my week. And then suddenly this stuff came along and I was filling my week. That I knew straight away was different. So from a practicality point of view, we did business plans and I knew straight off the bat I wanted to be a debt-free business. I didn't want to borrow money. I'd already been doing content on YouTube for about 9 months. So I was just still a short, really low subscriber count. I think I only had maybe like 600 subs or something for that first 9 months. It was a hard grind making content. I was getting like £10 a month from YouTube ad revenue. It wasn't done as a business. But then suddenly we had a video that went viral and suddenly it just propelled the channel. And I realized the power of social media, the power that social media can bring. And in conjunction with places like the Silver Forum and various different other avenues, we built this little brand, this business. But it was very important to be debt-free because I knew straight off the bat that if you borrow money to buy raw materials, to buy equipment, you're going to have to finance that. And if things don't work out, that ain't good. And you could be left up the brown creek without a paddle, to coin a phrase. So we didn't borrow money, but that meant a sacrifice. And that's the biggest thing in business. If you have that passion, you are going to have to sacrifice a lot to get what you want. And the sacrifice for many business owners is that you don't earn anything. You don't earn anything for quite a while. And for me, to be a debt-free business, we had to roll everything in. So for the first literally 3.5 years, it wasn't until sort of late in 2020, that first big year for me when COVID hit and just like I could not make enough silver to sell enough silver. It was crazy. That was the first year that I was able to withdraw some money from the business. I already then had enough working capital that it was self-sustaining. I didn't have to put any more money in from the sales that we had. I could withdraw a little bit and I could enjoy a small, modest income for a change. But that meant going 3 years without salary, without income, without... I suppose in a way you are earning income. It depends how you look at it from a mentality point of view. But if you are rolling stuff into stock, at least with a precious metals business, you are literally putting money into a silver lining. The raw material stuff always has value. So that's very important. So that's the biggest lesson from any kind of entrepreneurial side of things for anyone looking to get into a business. If you want to be debt-free, you're going to have to make sacrifices. Now, there are other ways to do business. You can, of course, be, taking out loans and finance to do this. And there were a number of opportunities that we had with, we were working with different partners in Europe, the European Mint, loads of different businesses out there wanted to work with us in terms of sponsorships and stuff like that. And we were working with them to a degree, and I'd been offered a number of times to basically set up a UK arm of like the European Mint, basically. And it just didn't really seem right for me to do. There were a number of opportunities along the way where we could have gone bigger, we could have gone massive, we could have been running. I mean, if you look at where businesses are now, some of the major bullion dealers out there were, I say relatively small, they were doing 30, 40 million pounds a year in business and now are doing 10 times that. I'm not saying that I would ever have been that kind of size, but there were opportunities where I could have taken on staff, where we could have grown businesses, we could have been a full-on bullion dealer, but I chose never to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that was in a moment. But the point is that wasn't for me in terms of the risk. Employing other people is hard, and that was one of the key components of my previous gainful employment. And employing people ain't fun, ain't easy, and especially in a precious metals world, you're putting a lot of trust in other people. So the point though is that if you are looking to get into business, do it for the right reasons and do it because you know that the end goal is going to be there. And if you're putting stuff into a silver lining, you've got that equity in the business. So I always knew that whilst I wasn't earning a salary, I was gaining equity in that business. But the passion is what fuels it, and passion has to be what fuels it. And if a job doesn't feel like a job, then it's not a job anymore. And that's what I have had for nearly 10 years now, which I'm so very fortunate for. But this all brings me back round to this central point of being able to quit that daily grind, to make a difference for my future and have the future in my hands rather than in somebody else's hands. And my old roles were always within businesses that were, of course, owned by other people and working for those business owners. And I'd always see them from that side and see, what they were able to achieve. And not that I was sort of materialistic in the sort of wanting to have a flash car and fancy holidays, but you saw the freedom they had. And that always appealed to me. And so now, with what I am and how I work, I have the freedom to take time off when I need to. For me, a bit of time off means I can go and batch film 6-7 videos, schedule them, and then I don't have to think about doing anything on YouTube for a while. The way that I run my Poured Silver side of the business now is we have annual product runs where I will make a bunch of products over a time period. Then I'll have a break. Then I won't do anything for a month. That's unfathomably great. From a life perspective, you cannot put a value on that. And that's not possible in the daily grind of a 9-to-5 job. I remember so often taking annual leave on various jobs I've had, and you take 2 weeks off. I think the longest I ever took off from a job was like 2.5 weeks. Where I went to America for a holiday. And I remember being on holiday, like every day I was always like, well, it's now 9 days until I'm back at work, 8 days until I'm back at work. And I remember not enjoying that element of it. And, some of the people that I would work with as well, not very nice people at all, quite frankly, but you have to put up with them. At least when you work for yourself, you don't have that to work with. There are other contentious issues of being on social media and having to deal with people in social media land that perhaps don't like you and you don't necessarily fully get on with them, but that's just part and parcel of life. But at least I don't have to make small talk with them over the water cooler, basically. So being your own boss, quitting that daily life cycle is the best thing that you can ever do. And there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to do that full justice in a video that's 15 minutes long. There is no way. That is something that if you are interested in doing, I'm not going to try and sell you a course to do it. There are plenty of different YouTube content creators and business owners that will try and sell you a course to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is just simply a passion. If you have an idea, if you have a passion for something, if you have an idea of a product, there are plenty of examples of people within the precious metals community that have got passions for things that they've turned into livelihoods. You've just got to look at things like Stackers Social. It's growing and it will continue to grow. The Silver Forum, the owner of the Silver Forum, turned his forum into a livelihood. There are plenty other examples. The ping tester. There are so many different people, content creators even, here on YouTube. I just recently was on a live stream for International Stacker, which you need to subscribe to because he's an incredible content creator. He's quit his day job. He's done the biggest, most challenging thing that anybody can do. He's quit the day job to focus on content creation full time. And kudos to him. And kudos to anybody who does that and has the volition to try it. Now, I'm not trying to say to everybody that you need to go and quit your job tomorrow because, of course, bills still need to be paid. But if you've got a passion for something, that is where entrepreneurial skills come from. Learn, absorb, talk with people. I did it so much. As I said, I can't put into words in a 15-minute video everything that I did. I spoke with so many people. I networked. I had higher education on business, how to run businesses, but this is stuff that you can learn easily. YouTube is a resource for the good. There are so many different content creators out there that talk at length, hopefully in a similar way to this, to inspire people, to make people understand that quitting that daily grind is the best thing that one can do. And for me, the fact that I quit that daily grind and got into silver and gold just compounds the fact that this is the best decision that I ever made. I'm 10 years in, going strong. I've got £1 million plus business. We've turned over £1 million just in poured silver, not even mentioning all of our other avenues of revenue that we've had and got over this last decade. God, it's hard to say that, decade of being in business. But that's not come out of luck. And I'll leave you this parting thought. I sometimes struggle, and I've done a video which I think was published last Wednesday. I filmed a lot of videos lately because I'm going to have a break. That's my beautiful ability to do so. I said in that video that when I take on a sponsor and a sponsor offers to pay a certain amount, it could be a small amount, it could be a large amount, it could be gifted a £500 coin. And I'm like, that's a lot for just one video. You've got to remember all of the work that's been put in up to a given point. And any entrepreneur will tell you that when you calculate the amount of hours that you've put in, the blood, sweat, the toil, the tears that you've put into something over a long period of time, actually that £500 you're getting for one specific job or one product or whatever it might be, actually that's not a lot at all. And one of my very good friends keeps reminding me of that when I say, I can't believe that I'm in a position where I am and that I get to have sponsors and I get to do X, Y, and Z and I get to be able to showcase these coins. And he keeps reminding me, he says, you've done this work for 10 years. Every single time you've turned the camera on, every time you've talked, every time you've learnt and pushed your business, that has contributed to where you are today. And that's, I think, really important. And that's the entrepreneurial spirit. That's the entrepreneurial message. You can't learn that. You can't teach that. So if anybody tries to teach that to you, you can't. You have to understand it in the core of your being, that what you do because you have the passion for it and that you love it for why you love it. I hope that has inspired someone out there. Maybe it will. Maybe this video will only get 1,000 views. Who knows? But if it gets 1,000 views and of those 1,000 people that watch it, maybe one thinks, you know, that idea that I've had a few years ago, I might want to think about exploring that again. You can. And if you want to know a little bit more about my business and some of the ins and outs of it, I've got so much I could talk about. I mean, I could just sit here for another hour with this camera on, but quite frankly, that would not be a popular video on YouTube. YouTube probably wouldn't recommend that video out to very many people, and the algorithm would say, actually, Backyard Bullion, that's a bit boring. But I think it's really important. I think it's really cool. But, you know, there are so many things I could talk about, like the practicalities of, like, to this day, I still have not ever bought packaging material other than cardboard boxes. I've never bought internal packaging material. I've always recycled stuff. But the amount of money I've saved on that is just crazy. Small little things, tips, hints, tricks, I've got them all. You let me know if you want to hear more about this down in the comments. And for the cool kids, that's the comment for the prize draw. Just being a cool kid and commenting. If you want, you can tell me you're cool. Say I'm cool because I listened to, God, this is like the longest video I've done in a while now. It's like 22 minutes in the video. So there we have it. Thank you, especially to all of you who watched to the end, because like, it's crazy to have a channel with this many subscribers and to have loyal subscribers that watch into my long rambles. And I often get criticisms on my comments of people go, well, that was 15 minutes of my life I'll never get back. If you don't get it, you don't get it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. And I don't really, quite honestly, care because, as I said, if I've reached 1,000 people and I just inspire one person, that's good enough for me. That's what I like to do. That's it from me. We'll see you all on the next video. As always, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.